Good evening, everyone. I hope you all are well tonight. My name is Nyla Freeman, and I'm one of the Assistant Corporation Counsel for the city and a member of Ben McCarthy's leadership team, the great folks behind this panel. I wanted to jump on just to welcome you all to the panel on Black well-being and surviving 2020 and say that, I'm excited for this panel. I'm happy to be joined by you all tonight. So welcome and thank you all for joining us. This year, Ben Millennials kicked off Black History Month with a well-being series that focused on daily physical activities, mental health, and overall wellness in the Black community. 2020 was a rough year for many of us. So we really just wanted to provide a space to share insights, reflect, and maybe all those reflections just celebrate where we've come and what we've achieved despite the adversity and the many obstacles that 2020 and really all the years before that have put in front of us. Um, yeah, that's all I have for you. Well, actually, just to repeat what Quincy said, if you can, just keep all of your mics on mute and there'll be time for questions at the end. Any questions that or comments you have during the presentation piece or panel piece, me or another member of Ben Millennials will just be, scouring the chat and we'll see it and we'll raise it. So no worries for that. Now I turn it over to Quincy. He's the co-host and really a lot of the brains behind this panel and a lot of this week. So Quincy, thank you, and just take it away.
I appreciate you, Nyla. Thanks for being my partner in crime for the last 2 months. Before I go any further, I do want to introduce some Ben Millennials, leadership members. I'll just go ahead and shout you guys out for the sake of time. We have Josh McFadden, who is the co-chair of communications for Ben Millennials. We have Dominique Williams, who is the co-chair of the entire Ben Millennials. So thank you for being here, Co-Chair Williams. We have Charlene Chanel Fateau, who is our wonderful secretary. She keeps us organized. We have Kyra Fox, who is an engagement liaison for outside. So if outside individuals, so if you are a person that is a non-city employee, make sure you get with Kyra so we Ben Millennials can connect with you. Let me make sure I'm not missing anybody else. All right, so that is Ben Millennials leadership, and some may join us throughout the night, and we'll make sure we shout them out. We just want to give a shout out to Chief Miller for sponsoring this, who is the Chief Aisha Miller, who is the Chief of Economic Development. No, not Economic Development. I'm sorry. She's the Chief of Civic Engagement. I'm sorry. I'm giving her a whole new damn title. Sorry. Civic Engagement, but she has been an advisor to Ben Millennials and just wonderful support for young Black people in the city of Boston. So we definitely want to give her a shout out. All right, so as Nyla said, this Black History Month, we've hosted this series all week. Monday, we had one of our panelists, Yoga Mike Massey, who focused on mindfulness. On Tuesday, we had another one of our panelists, Orville Joseph, OJ the Juice Man is what I call him. He gave us a really intense at-home workout on Tuesday. I'm still sore from it. And then on Thursday, we tried to bring it all home and focus on nutrition. And we had Jody Ann, who's a personal trainer, as well as a meal prep specialist. So she walked us through just last night a dish that we could prepare for our families and eat for 2 or 3 days that are super healthy and super good. Mine was dry, but it is what it is. I don't cook, but we're learning. So that's what this week was about. We wanted to give Black folks in the city of Boston, especially Black millennials, just tools to survive, and not only survive, thrive. So I am honored that we have made it to day 4. And I want you to give yourselves a virtual round of applause because we have made it to day 4 and we are at this holistic panel. So I'm really, really ready to get into this conversation. I'm honored that you're here with us because it has not been easy for any of us, but we have all made it through 2020. No matter how many times it tried to knock us down, we are still here. So before we start this much needed discussion, I want to just give a brief moment of silence for all our loved ones who we've lost from COVID, mental health issues, and just didn't make it down through 2020. So we're going to take a 30-second moment of silence. I'm not a religious person, so you ain't got to bow your heads or nothing like that. We're just going to take a 30-second moment of silence. All right, thank you so much. So shout out to anybody that's listening or watching that lost someone. We're here for you. The individuals on this panel will make sure you get their information so you can connect with them. So now that we have survived 2020, let's talk about how we thrive and move forward. So to help me moderate this discussion, this much needed discussion, I wanted to share space with an amazing young person that recently came into my life about a month ago. I'm blessed to mentor several young people all over Boston, but this particular person reminded me of myself when I was in my 20s. So that doesn't happen often where I run into someone and I'm like, oh, they sound like Quincy. So long story short, I said, Carrie, I want to make sure that you have all the platforms, you have all the resources to be successful, because someone did that for me. So I'm just paying it forward. So without any further ado, I want to bring my co-host and the facilitator for tonight's conversation, Miss Carrie Mays.
Thank you so much, Quincy. Once again, peace, love, and hair grease, everyone. My name is Carrie Mays. I just turned 20 years old, and for the past 5 years, I've been a youth activist in the city of Boston. I've been doing a tremendous amount of community engagement work socially, civically, and politically. Most recently, I was one of the youth that helped organize one of the biggest Black Lives Matter protests in Boston for George Floyd. In addition to recently getting over 320 people registered to vote in the city of Boston through a movement that we created called Gang Gang Votes. So that is just a snippet of what I do as a youth activist in Boston. I am so honored to be here tonight and share the space with each and every one of you. And I think this space is very much needed because as an activist, I never, sometimes I forget, how do I protect my energy? How do I protect my peace? And so I think having discussions and having spaces to have dialogue like this is very important. So thank you so much once again for sharing the space. I'm so honored to be co-hosting with Quincy tonight. And I am here to learn because as an activist, this is all a learning experience for me. And hopefully I get to take away and learn how to increase my self-care. So I'm going to pass it right back to Quincy.
Great, thank you so much, Carrie. So now we're going to get into our panelists. So we have 5 dynamic panelists, 3 of them who were with us, like I said earlier, throughout the week. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. And we're going to start with Yoga Mike Massey. Could you please introduce yourself, sir?
I think I could do that. Yeah, they call me Yoga Mike. When I was born into this world, they named me Michael David Massey. But then through my time growing up in Boston, I had to morph into different versions of myself, I guess. So I guess I was getting suited and booted for yoga before I even knew it. Like, I was just little Miguelito to my grandmother and my family, just running around playing games and, using my imagination in the backyard. Then every boy got to step off the porch one day. So I stepped off the porch and I became Mike Mass, the football player. Through football, I got introduced to a lot of other brothers from other crews. Now, I always say Boston doesn't really have a gang culture per se. Other places got Crips and Bloods and, folk and Latin Kings. Here in Boston, we got crews. Because you got to understand the logistics of Boston. Boston is a wild maze, a labyrinth, so to speak. You got to know different codes. You got to know different gear, different, different ways to speak and talk and move in different parts of Boston. If you don't, you will not make it. I'll be 45 in a couple of years, so I think I know something about that, right? So over the years, I had to always be different things in different spaces, but I could never be comfortable. It wasn't until I got broken, I got these nasty scars on my arm to always tell the story about how I was playing football one day and I got broken. It was the first time I ever felt mortal because I spent my whole life from the time I was like 8 learning how to be armored. Like it's a physical reaction to pain as your body gets armored real quick, like an armadillo. So most of us walk around like that constantly. I'm proof of that. But when I got permission through this yoga practice to relax, it was like being freed. And when I found out that that was the mission of yoga, it's not who has the best headstand, or who can do the best split, or who can buy the hottest Lululemons and match them with their mat. That ain't yoga, but we see that every day. You can capitalize on that, right? And at the end of the day, I realized yoga is deeper than that. It needs to be respected. A lot of people are not respecting it, much like hip hop. Hip hop is the culture that came out of struggle. The Bronx was burning when hip hop was born. I believe right now we need a movement that can carry us to the next thing, and the next thing is going to be moving away from the techno. I think the techno had its time, and it caused some things that made us advance. But in order for us to get control of what has happened, this experiment of mixing bio with techno, we have to get back to the bio now. We got to remember how it is to eat right, to treat each other right, to move slowly. And yoga gives us permission to do that. The ultimate goal of a yogi is something called samadhi. Samadhi translates to liberation, and I love that because you can't just get liberation. Nobody can give it to you. You can't log online and do a 5-day course and get liberated. You got to fight and fight and fight and fight to get it. That's why I get emotional about yoga, because people call me a master, but I'm not. I'm a student like anybody else. I just get it and I understand it and not how to deliver it. So that's me. And if y'all ever need me, holla at me. I'm always around. I ain't nobody big or famous. I'm here.
You are big, you are famous. All right, thank you, Yoga Mike. And next up, someone I met, I was just actually listening to James Hill's Javi with Jimmy, and it was about mental health. And I was like, let me see what's going on out here in these streets of mental health. Nisha Deed, who is just have been amazing the past 2 weeks of my life, just giving me different resources and tools. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Naisha Deed, and I am the founder of an organization called Pure Spark. It's something that I created, I guess, in 2018 after I suffered from depression, suicidal ideations, and suicide attempts. And it was really a way to help educate really my family at first. In 2019, I had lost my 5th family member to suicide, and I was just over it at that point. I was over losing family members to suicide and us just not speaking up about it. So I went public with my story. I shared my story with McLean Hospital, a hospital in Belmont that does a lot of great work as it relates to mental health, not necessarily for us, but just in general. And after I shared my story with them, I was like, okay, I'm about to share my story with everyone else. It's on the World Wide Web now. I can't take it back. And I was afraid, I was scared, and but I did it anyway. I did it scared. And I remember I was at my sister's house and I just decided I'm gonna put it on Facebook and I'm just gonna tell everybody, like, F it, there's certain people that already knew, and then they started sharing my story, and I wanted to take control over my own story. So I said, F it, I'm gonna share it on Facebook. And I remember like writing the post and putting it out, posting it, and running to the bathroom and just crying, because I did it and it felt like a release. And it no longer held me down anymore. And I remember going back to my computer and then seeing all the positive messages that I got from people. And actually people saying like, hey, me too, or my cousin or my brother or my sister. And what I realized after doing that was like, a lot of us suffer with this. We just suffer in silence, and then looking at the statistics, I think it was like 1 in 4 or 1 in 5, depending on what statistics you look at, are suffering from some sort of mental illness. And now with the pandemic, it's probably even more than that, right? And depending on where you live and all these different things, that attributes to it as well. So I did that. I shared my story. I started the platform. And then when the pandemic hit, I decided to create peer support groups. And Quincy, I think you came to one. I don't know who else. Celeste, you've been on there. OJ's been on there. So, you know, the peer support groups was really my way of connecting people with resources, because that was the number one issue that people was having issues with, was finding resources. And then trying to create some sort of community, a place where people felt safe at home, where they can talk about their issues. And just recently, I created a website to do that more quickly and efficiently. I'm only one person, and I get inundated with requests, personal requests from companies. And I just said, you know what, it's just more efficient if we create this website, this directory, so that we can get all the practitioners. And I'm not just talking about therapists, I'm talking about all wellness practitioners, because it's mind, body, soul, mind, body, soul. So those are the three categories. So that is who I am, and that is what I do.
Thank you, thank you. And next up, we have OJ the Juice Man, who's a city employee as well. So he is part of Ben and Ben Millennials. OJ, please introduce yourself, sir.
Thank you, Quincy. So as you guys know, my name is Orville Joseph, aka OJ. I am the owner of OJ Fit LLC, born and raised in Roxbury. Similar to Mike, I grew up in a neighborhood where it was kind of rough. If you guys are familiar with Boston, or born and raised in Boston, you know, area, or a housing complex called St. Joseph. So, you know, growing up, it wasn't so happy-go-lucky, you know, walking down streets like that. So my outlet was sports, you know, for at least, you know, you can say most kids in the city grew up playing sports. But basketball was my sport, you know, since I could even remember. My father handed a basketball, you know, in my hand, and it started from there, you know. So from basketball, it took me up until college, you know. I went to the University of Bucknell. And long story short, my basketball career ended. And it was kind of like a heartbreak, because basketball, you know, growing up was like my outlet from the outer world. You know, I forgot about all my stresses, you know, any drama that I had, you know, going on, or anything that was happening at home. Basketball was my outlet to just get away and forget about that. So from there, you know, I was trying to think of what can I do to basically, I wasn't really thinking about it, but, you know, I couldn't pinpoint what I was trying to do for myself, but I was basically trying to figure out a way to leverage my mental health, to make sure that my mental health was still operating at a optimal level, so I can function and, you know, continue going, you know, through school, you know, because I couldn't go home traveling to Pennsylvania on a full ride and then coming home empty-handed, you know, to a Caribbean household. You know, if you have Caribbean background, you know how serious they are with education. So you know, in order for me to survive, I had to do something to make sure that I can function. And from basketball, transition to working out, and, you know, staying in the gym, lifting weights. You know, that was my next outlet, because I was always like the small, scrawny kid growing up. I was the smallest one on the team for a good half of my life. I was riding the bench, you know, if you know that, what that term means. I wasn't getting too much play. So you know, from there, you know, working out has done wonders for me, you know, with my mental health, and just the ability to train my brain, and, you know, in order to focus and, you know, stick to something. So, you know, fast forward after college, you know, I came home, and as Quincy said, you know, working for the city, I got a degree that was transferable to help me get my foot in the door with working in the government. And after a while, you know, people saw my transformation from working out all those years from college. And, you know, for a long time, people were just like, hey, why don't you just become a trainer? Why don't you just work out and just teach people how to work out and get healthy? And for a while, I was just like, no, you know, it's not my thing. You know, I'm just doing it for myself. But then after a while, I was just like, you know what? Maybe this is something that I can do. And, one of my values, one of the things that I really take to heart is helping people. I'm a very helpful person. And I love, you know, just changing people's lives, or just being an instrument to people. So from there, that's how OJ Fit started a few years ago. So now I'm hosting boot camps around the city. Well, virtual boot camps now, you know, because of the current state of, you know, where we are, you know, in America and around the world. But, you know, helping people get fit and healthy, and just teaching them new ways to take care of themselves. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Thank you. OJ. And up next, we have the person that is responsible for a lot of our dinner tonight and last night, Jody Ann Fuller. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I am Jody Ann Fuller, like Quincy said, and I am the owner of High Point Fitness Boston, which is a meal prep company currently here in Boston. It was a personal training, meal prep, and cold press juicing company, and I have currently switched over to focus on a niche, essentially. So similar to OJ, I kind of walked into this fitness business, but a little different. So 12 years ago or so, I basically went into Gillette in South Boston, interested in a front desk position. And the woman at the time saw something a lot more in me. She wanted to coach me. She wanted me to be her protege, were her exact words. That's exactly what happened. And I fell in love with it. Along the course of falling in love with fitness and working in fitness, even when I had other jobs, I found that I was very broken, and the people that I was working with were also very broken. So they were maintaining these beautiful bodies and trying to, especially at that company and the clientele that I tried to upkeep after that, was very focused on how they looked. But I noticed that they were, and myself, were very stressed out. We were really unhappy, and we weren't solving, excuse me, we weren't solving the real issues. So naturally, when you're working on one part of yourself, it opens up other doors. So within that fitness work, I found that I wanted to feel better emotionally. I wanted to treat myself better. I wanted to treat other people better. And it led to a Reiki certification. It led to yoga, which of course Yoga Mike is very familiar with. And yoga is the manifestation, they say, of meditation. So it's the physical manifestation of meditation. So what it does for the body is very similar to what meditation does. So it led to all these other things that made me realize that holistic health is the only way. And to be your optimistic self, to be your optimal self, I apologize, to vibrate at your highest point, it's very important to be aware of, to educate, and to be consistent with trying to be holistically healthy in all ways. So with exercise, healthy eating, emotional health and awareness. So all of those good things. And I feel that that's very, 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 very important in our community because we are, we're taught something else from a very, very, very young age. So that's my story. I walked into fitness, and along the way, I realized what it could really do for me on a deeper level, and how can it affect me, myself, my child, his children, and so forth. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jody. And thank you for that wonderful meal last night, if I didn't thank you enough via text. And last but not least, I'm a big podcast person. I love listening to podcasts. I enjoy watching them at times. So I was introduced to this individual from Nyla. And then once I got the name, I went and researched Celeste the therapist, because everybody was like, you don't know Celeste the therapist? And I'm like, no, I don't know Celeste the therapist. But now I am honored and overjoyed to know Celeste the therapist, and I listen to her podcast at least once a day right now. So I love what you're doing. Celeste the therapist, please introduce yourself.
Hi, so I'm Celeste. I guess really quick, I struggled with depression growing up. It wasn't something I named. It was just something that I knew I dealt with, but I worked a lot. It takes me a long time to learn. People wouldn't think that because I'm very disciplined with what I do and I'm very consistent. And I went to college for psychology. It wasn't until after college when I started to realize like I was struggling because I was working a lot. But then I was struggling at night. And so I started going to therapy. I went to therapy, and then I realized like I've been like on autopilot in life. I've been surviving life. So I realized I needed to start living. And then I started living, And then I was like, I got to tell the people. So I would just like post stuff on social media about like mental health and like positive quotes. Then I opened my practice in 2015. But believe it or not, I really didn't want to put my face up there. I just wanted to practice because I'm like, this is about the practice. It's not about me. And a business coach was like, well, how people gonna know who they're gonna see? Like, you got to put your face up there. So I had to put my face up because I was really like nervous about like being on camera and putting myself on camera. So I opened up my practice. I started to go on YouTube Live to share things about mental health. Then I went on Periscope Live for a couple years, 5 days a week for like 15 minutes a day, just to answer questions, and then started to realize like how many people were struggling. And then in 2018, I wanted to like create my own platform. So I started the podcast because I think when I would talk about mental health, people assumed that because I was a therapist, that was the reason why I was able to talk about how I talked. And I said therapist is my job title, but I still like had to do a lot of work. So then with the podcast, I was able to talk to other people that are empowering other people because I'm really big on decolonizing what mental health looks like, so that people don't think if they don't have a psychiatrist or therapist that they can't find healing. So that's why I've been so passionate about that. And then Celeste the Therapist was birthed out of me going by the Uniting Center, which is the name of my practice. And people's like, what's the Uniting Center? I'm like, I'm Celeste, the therapist. So then that's how like my name became Celeste, the Therapist. It's just because I was trying to tell people who I was. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. All right, so let's get to it. Let's get to the conversation while people are here. Carrie?
Yes, so I will be asking some of the questions for the panel tonight. First off, I want to say that a lot of the things that were said really resonated with me. Throughout this year, I've been unconsciously neglecting the body, but I've been nurturing my mind, and I've been nurturing the soul, but I've been, like I said, unconsciously neglecting the body, eating all types of junk food to cope with what was going on. And most recently, I just became vegan. So, this whole factor about, raising your vibrational energy and your frequencies is really resonated with me. And also, if you guys resonate with something that you guys hear or you feel what somebody is saying, feel free to snap it up for them or use the little emojis that the Zoom has. So, yeah, this question will be going to Mike and Naisha. So, in 2020, we experienced a public health pandemic, extreme civil unrest, and countless issues in our communities. What have you noticed and how people are coping with it or grieving? So the first, that can go to Mikey, and then right after, Naisha, you can take it on.
All right, cool. I'll take it. Well, I went through stages. Like I said, I go through stages with stuff. First, I was on my Malcolm stuff. I'm about to say something else, but you know what I mean. My Malcolm, I was just angry. It's like, yo, this was all coming to a head. I knew this was coming. Like, I was just on my porch, just talking to anybody. At that point, I was doing a lot of just random live casts just on my porch because that's as far as I could go. During the pandemic, like my porch felt like a whole nother world. Like I can go sit on my porch. So I was on some angry stuff at first, but then I started watching. What's the fallout going to be, right? Because around the time George Floyd's situation went down, man, like I said, we got to be careful. We got to be careful. Because so many, especially in the yoga community, so many spaces that I knew for a fact either wouldn't let me teach there or hit me with some sly stuff like, yeah, yo, you don't really fit what we looking for, but we would love for you to come teach our instructors. Them type of folks was putting up Black Lives Matter signs and we're giving out free scholarships to this teacher training. And I'm like, hold up. Is it just so that they can cover themselves or do they really care about what's going on? Like Ice Cube said in Boys in the Hood, do they really care what's going on with us? Either they don't know, they don't show, or they don't care what's going on in the hood. And I had to be Ice Cube in that moment. So I started telling a lot of people, pump your brakes. Don't jump on this stuff yet, especially when it comes to yoga. I know y'all want to jump in and y'all want to help. But would you go to a dentist that just took a 5-day certification course for a root canal to get your teeth done? Or would you go to the one that 3 or 4 or 5 different people gave you the review on? Because that's what started coming out. Shortly after that, I'm like, y'all be careful. Next thing you know, I'm on my body work table, and a few of y'all done been on my table. I can't say who because of client confidentiality, but y'all know how I get down on the table. Meticulous, because I'm working with you and your well-being. And I want you to walk out of here feeling better than you did when you walked in. Same thing with yoga. But people started coming to my table and was like, yo, I was doing this yoga thing with somebody and I got hurt. And I'm like, did you ask where they got certified? Were they even certified? Dang, I didn't even know to ask that. What style of yoga do they teach? I don't know. They just say yoga, come do yoga. We have to be careful. I know people want to help, but just like cooking, Q, like you said, Jody Ann showed you everything, but you just don't have the dexterity yet to make yours a little more moist. You got it, but you got to work at it. You can't just jump out off the porch, out the bed and say, I'm a yoga teacher just because you put some hours in. There's 10 different principles you need to know before you can even step on your yoga mat. And half the people that are teaching it right now don't even know that. And that's why people are getting hurt. So what I said was with this movement, two things got to happen. Got to be careful where the help is coming from. And the second thing is everybody got to be, and I'm going to curse right here, motherfucking Master P. You got to build your empire out your trunk and make it work. That's my era. That's what I know. That's what I did. And that's why I'm thriving. So that's how I handled it. I just got up and did it.
Thank you. Thank you. Naisha?
Do you mind repeating the question one more time?
I got you. I got you.
Thank you.
So in 2020, we experienced a public health pandemic, extreme civil unrest, and countless issues in our communities. What have you noticed personally and how people are coping with it or grieving?
Yeah, so I think I have a couple of data points, right? One would be Facebook. Two would be, my close friends. And then three would be the peer support groups that I lead. So on Facebook, right, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to this. I'm sure you guys have similar Facebook timelines as I do. With the pandemic, right, when it first came about, it was like, oh, okay, you want me to be in the house for a couple of weeks. Got it, cool. I can do a couple of weeks. But then a couple of weeks turned into a couple of months, turned into almost a year. And I think, I'm trying to remember at what point, I think it might've been the summer when people was just like, I can't handle this anymore. And people, were going out, even though, we're not supposed to be in places with more than 10 people. And I think that was really because connection is so important to the human well-being. It's so important to our mental health. And so we have these Zoom settings, but interacting with people face-to-face, one-on-one is so important for our wellness. So we have this thing going on where we're thinking about, we want to live, we want to survive, we don't want to get COVID. But then we're also thinking about, well, we want to feel connected to people. We don't want to be alone. Loneliness is hurtful. It's not a great feeling. So I think that people, started to get at their wits end and then started to say, all right, well, this is going to be a norm for a while, right? Like we got the vaccine. This is going to be the norm for a while. So how do I cope? What are some things that I can do to cope? And, just trying to figure out using what we have to kind of get through this, because none of us have ever been through a pandemic before, right? So everybody's just trying to do the best they can to deal. And I think that that's kind of what's been happening. And I think once we make it out of this situation, we'll be better for it, right? We'll be able to say, look what I just went through. I'm resilient. Like I am so resilient. I made it out of this thing. And I think, it's just a matter of getting there. But we'll be able to look back at this situation and say that. Now that's for the pandemic piece. And related to your question about, the racial uproar that occurred last year, I think it, how do I put this now? It put the fire in a lot of people. I mean, I saw my whole Facebook light up about, I want to do this, I'm doing this, da, 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 da. And people were ready to go to war, and war looks different for everybody, right? Some people go to war by actually going out and marching. Some people go to war by having conversations. And I just saw all of this energy being poured out and I was like, oh crap. people about to burn out. Like y'all all about to burn out. Like I'm trying to tell y'all, I know this is something we're passionate about and that we're frustrated with, but you gotta realize this is something that, like last night I was having a conversation about racism. It's something we dealt with for 400 years. It's not gonna go away in a day, right? And this is something that, you know, we can't just have one conversation about it and think that we're gonna fix it and solve it, because if that was the case, we wouldn't be dealing with it for over 400 years. So I saw this urge of like energy and people just wanting to do things and do a lot of work. But then I started to realize, I don't know if you guys follow, God, what is that person on Twitter and IG about rest, the NAP ministry, about we gonna rest, we tired. And you know, I see a lot of people now taking their foot off the pedal and saying, you know what, we've done enough. Y'all gotta figure this out. So that's kind of what I've been seeing kind of evolve, is that, you know, eventually we're getting there, right? We're getting there after learning some things. And it's progress, right? It's not perfection.
I definitely feel you on that one. And one thing that a mentor of mine's also told me is that white supremacy will wear you out. That's literally its job. And half of us are too good looking and pretty to be worn out, okay? And so I definitely feel you. And so changing your self-care habits is something that all of us probably had to do this year or last year. I promised myself this Black History Month, I'm not arguing with nobody on Facebook, because Facebook is a very argumentative space where people say blasphemous things about Black people, right? And so my self-care for this month looks like not arguing with people, because it is not my responsibility to educate everybody on racism just because I am Black. So with that being said, it leads me to my next question. Thank you, Naisha, and thank you, Yoga Mike. To how did 2020 change your practices? And the first person who will be answering this question is Jody Ann, and then next will be OJ. So once again, how did 2020 change your practices?
So I think how 2020 changed my practices, as well as many of ours, is it forced me to reflect on a really honest level. Basically having to build from structures that were, you know, that weren't healthy before, or that were not whole before. So I think what many of us, and what definitely I had to do this year, was, you know, to go back to childhood traumas, to heal things that had loose ends. So to really reflect on the things that were stopping me from being, you know, who we are, because I think that's also something that's been revealed within this past year, is there's been this big light on, you know, how powerful we all are, and, you know, what we have inside of us, and how we can utilize that, and how we can use that to build this world and to re-educate this world, you know, so how we can do that piece by piece. And in order to do that, you have to have, you know, this, you know, essentially this healed piece of yourself to offer, this healing that you want to happen around you. So I think 2020 brought me back to a really, really, really honest level of healing that is transferring into myself, my business, the people around me, my child. So that would be my answer. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you. The next person that will be answering is OJ.
Yes, so to answer your question, I think for a lot of us, this quarantine, this shutdown has forced us to slow down a whole lot. And for me, you know, again, that's how it's affected me. I've had to slow down myself. Before the quarantine and whatnot, I was just always on the go, you know, trying to balance, you know, working for the government, you know, on top of trying to build this brand new business up, and you know, just having my hands in two pots. And with being so busy, you kind of forget about yourself. And it's funny, saying that for somebody who's always, trying to take care of themselves and take care of others, there's still a certain aspect of yourself, that I know that I've kind of forgot about, which was my mental, well-being. And, I've had from this slowdown, I've had to kind of, take a look at my life and, kind of reflect on, where I'm at, how I'm handling things on a daily basis, and basically where do I want to see myself, after this quarantine, after the shutdown, years from now. And 2020, I've done this before, but 2020, I've really implemented meditation. I used to meditate and I used to, pray, when things were rough. That was the only time that I used to like meditate and kind of just slow down and just try to, collect myself. But 2020, since I've had the opportunity to slow down, I had no choice. I made a pact with myself to meditate once I wake up and right before I go to sleep. And that helped me a whole lot because I started my day with a clear conscience, with a clear mind, and I ended my day with a clear conscience and a clear mind. So I didn't have any trouble going to sleep. I didn't have any trouble, going about my day, fulfilling tasks that I needed to do. And it just made me a totally much better person, not to say that I was like a bad person or anything like that, but it just made me more functionable, again, dealing with these stresses of, I'm always on the go, I'm always outside the house. Don't get me wrong, I'm a homebody, but, I think I can speak for everybody when, staying at home for this long really gets to you. So, implementing meditation and just, let me see, I've also implemented like listening to high frequencies, noises, music or sounds, whatever you want to call it. And just like Jody Ann said, like just going over past unhealed traumas and just trying to, grow from that and, just leveling up mentally, spiritually, and physically. So that's how, some of the aspects of my life has changed or adjusted.
Thank you. The next person who will be answering that question is Celeste. And once again, let me repeat it. How have your practices changed in 2020?
So I had already started doing telehealth therapy January 2020. So, when the pandemic started, I was already set up to work from home. I think, since I opened my practice, I went from working in nonprofit, having coworkers, to in 2016 working by myself. So since 2016, I had already been in a intentional space of like being still and being okay with being alone and the silence and feeding my spirit. So with that being said, as far as my own personal practices, that was fine. Things I did learn, I had to learn how to do was cook. So I think people think like, cause I'm always on Instagram showing like different meals. And I'm like, I just went on YouTube and I had to use what I had. I had YouTube and I wanted some food. Another way that like when there's a lot going on, so obviously like my clients was dealing with a lot, and so the way my pain kind of manifests is in my body. Like in my head, I have a really clear mind. I'm really intentional about that, and I work with Mike, Yoga Mike, and I think that for me, being able to I'm very mindful of like how my pain shows up, because our pain can show up in different ways. People are always shocked that something that like being stressed out or overwhelmed can show up like in your back. For me, it's in my back. A lot of times people start seeing me because of maybe some physical manifestation that have taken place. So that was it. Learning how to cook, getting more massages to make sure that I'm able to like move like the pain through my body, and that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it was beautiful what everyone said. And I think, with Jody Ann saying, this brought us to a lot of self-reflection during this pandemic, a lot of self-introspection. And I love how she talked about, reflecting on your childhood traumas and at the same time, never destroying the child energy within yourself. And I think OJ brought up a great point about implementing meditation and how this pandemic has forced all of us to slow down. And then, you know, Celeste, you brought up a great point about where the intersection between the physical reality and the spiritual reality intersects. You know, you're stressed, but you're not just stressed in the mind. It's starting to show in your body. It's starting to manifest through how you feel. And so now I will be passing it off back to my right-hand man, Quincy, who will be asking more questions.
Right, you're doing a great job, Carrie. Love it, love it. Love that youth presence. And thank you for the panelists. I'm learning a lot about each and every one of you. So we talked a little bit about stigma throughout this week. And this question is going to be specifically for OJ and Mike. And I want Naisha to chime in because she was a part of my venting session when I felt a certain way. So this week, stigma has shown its ugly face. And that stigma I'm talking about is, you know, yoga, physical fitness, meditation, therapy being for women or being for white folks. So throughout all this week, we've been getting people to show up to these events, but they've all been women. I can name the men who attended these free resources. So we just started talking about it, like, what's up with that stigma? Why are people afraid to seek help, to talk about being vulnerable? So Yoga Mike, I want you to start this conversation off and just tell us how or why you think the stigma around mental health is plaguing the Black community, especially Black men.
All right. Imagine a world, if you will, where you spend the whole first 25 years of your existence in a phase where you just study yourself, how you study the universe, and then you study how you and the universe connect, from nature to astrology to nutrition to physical fitness to meditation. There are such practices in the East, right? In the yoga traditions of the Hindu parts of the world, it's called brahmacharya. They make the young folks focus on those things and those things only until you turn 25. Imagine if we were allowed to just chill and explore the world we occupy and how it operates from the time we was born out the womb until we was 25. Most of what we just heard as grown folks in our 30s and on, we have to go back and look at past. I've had to take frog poison. I've had to drink ayahuasca. I've had to go to Detroit and learn how to use psychedelics so I can go to actual moments when young Mikey was caught in a corner or had a gun to his head or something, had to go tell young Mikey, you're gonna be okay. I know because I'm at the place where you're okay. And that's how deep I had to go, right? And I'm okay now with being vulnerable. I started to cry at the class Monday and part of me wanted to hide it. Then I had to remember who I'm teaching and what I'm teaching it for, so I let it go. Something about that song, I was like, I can handle it. I can handle it. But the song I played really expresses love to me. It's something that I know I haven't had a good majority of my life. I have it now. With the family I'm able to put my hands on, and literally I've created children, a wife. But when I look back at the things that I had to go through to get to this point and look at how I got here, I had to do everything backwards. Look at everything I had learned to this point as a bad example, so to speak, and admit that. A lot of brothers don't want to open that Pandora's box. They're afraid. Because we hold it. Look at the brothers in the hood. The hardest ones walk like this. Their whole fight or flight system is contracted because they have been armored their whole life. They're afraid to open that up. Because just like Celeste alluded to, we talk about this all the time. Because now it's okay for me to tell you I work with her because she let y'all know that, not me. We find stuff in her tissue.
Oops, Celeste said, you ain't talking about me, you frozen. She said, you ain't about to drop a dime on me. And
had us all captivated, had us all captivated. Like,
yep, I was like, what is he about to say about Celeste? And then boom.
I didn't do nothing.
All right.
No, but what I was saying is brothers, they're afraid to open that up. That's why I ask brothers all the time, they in pain, like, yo, I'm in pain. I'm like, get on my massage table. Nah, I'm good. I need a lady for that. Then you ain't in pain, bro. Right? You ain't in pain. So at the end of the day, man, it's a tough one to get the brothers out here. But how I get the brothers on the table, I play mental games. I say, yo, how you think LeBron will make it through a game 7? You think he's just gonna wait for a particular mistake? He might have a particular, but look at the people who work on them. Their hands have to be big and strong like these. So we have to learn to sit with brothers and meet them where they're at, so to speak. Right? So I make yoga more like martial arts. I do a lot of connections to hip hop. Like hip hop is something that people use to level their heads. Back when I was young, we had people talking about just simply how to go to a party and ask a girl for her number. The Jungle Brothers, Queen Latifah, Moni Love. We had people that was just celebrating being Black and listening to music and having parties. And then NWA came around. And that became everybody wanted to wear khakis, hoodies, carry a gun, wear sunglasses, disrespect each other. So there's a shift in power. I've seen it and I know it's doable. And I know we can bring it back to that, right? But it has going to take some restructuring. It's going to take some what the brothers in our nations of the gods in the earth say. We're going to have to destroy some stuff and then rebuild it. So we got to be ready for that. So
love it. OJ, get in here, brother. You're slightly younger than Yoga Mike. Let's talk about your generation and what's going on with Black folks and just not wanting to seek services. So what are your tips for people that look like you, that's your age, that's trying to just find wellness and they don't know what that looks like, or they're afraid or intimidated? Talk to us, brother.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let me speak personally about myself. You know, again, growing up in this day and age in my era, and I'm sure eras before me, men have been conditioned to be a man and be strong and fearless and, you know, not talk about your issues too much, because then you're going to sound like a complainer. So from hearing all these messages, and again, growing up in, you know, this neighborhood of Roxbury, seeing all the guys around me acting tough, and like Mike said, always walking around with their chest poking out and whatnot, I kind of got conditioned to emulate that. All right. I wasn't like the tough guy, but, you know, growing up, but I just had to be one of the guys. So, you know, growing up, I wasn't always outspoken. You know, I didn't talk about my issues. I didn't talk about how I felt, you know, even to my parents. You know, just recently, well, not recently, these past few years, I had to get on myself to start opening up to my parents, because, you know, communication was one of the biggest hurdles for me, you know, up until recently. You know, so dealing with mental health and, you know, asking for help, that wasn't something that, you know, I was accustomed to. I wasn't, you know, coming home like, hey, mom, like I need to talk to you, or dad, I need to talk to you. I just sat in my corner and just either whatever the issue was, either cried to myself or got over it, you know, however long that, you know, took. So, you know, I see a lot of men, a lot of Black men going through similar situations. And even my friends, you know, currently, you know, at the age of 30, 35 plus, they don't want to talk to nobody about their issue. They just suck it up and go sit in the corner. So with these messages that we get hit from movies and superstars and other guys around us about, you know, just being a man and sucking it up and not really talking about our issues, you know, it's kind of difficult to reach out sometimes, because, you know, you don't want to come off too friendly to certain guys because they might take it a certain way, or you know, they're just not ready to open up because they haven't opened up to anybody like that. So it's like trying to teach somebody to open up can be difficult. And I'm not a therapist, you know, but I will say that if we could get Black men to find a therapist that connects with them, somebody that can relate to them, that would help a whole lot. Because, you know, I have gotten a therapist a few years ago, and it was probably the best things that ever happened, you know, to me in my life. You know, I met with a therapist who I could connect to. One, he was Caribbean. So before I even could open up, we vibed on a level, you know, speaking about different cultures, foods and carnivals and stuff like that. So it got to ease me up before I could actually open up and just drop everything that I've been holding on to my whole life. With the guys, you know, with the Black males around us growing up, and even the children, the Black boys growing up, you know, underneath us, they're still getting those messages about, you know, manning up and you know, you have to hold your own, you know, down, and you know, if you cry about something, you're weak, and that's something that is toxic, you know, I've learned that holding things for so long just breaks you down, and it's just not healthy. So, you know, I think that if we could find ways that we can connect younger brothers to therapists that they can relate to, or even their parents, you know, again, I've had issues opening up to my parents up until, you know, these last couple of years, but even finding ways just so they can learn how to communicate and just constantly feeding them the message that it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel a certain way, and not hold it in, let it out. You may never know, somebody's there that can relate, that can help you out, you know, that can help you get through this transition, this emotional transition, you know. So, you know, it's the stigma of just being a man, you know, a Black man at that, you know. I don't know why it's just, you know, the Black man. It's never really a conversation about the white man or the Spanish man or the Indian man. It's always the Black man. He has to be strong and fearless and all that, which is cool. It's cool, don't get me wrong, but there has to be a balance. So, you know, I hope we can reteach the idea of what a Black man is, or who you should be.
I appreciate that. So me and OJ work on the same floor, and I've never heard him talk this much. That's why I'm like just letting him go, because this is some really good information coming out this brother's mouth, and we worked together for a very long time, and he never talks this much. So I'm just excited to hear from you, and I appreciate you, brother. I have a lot of people in my life that I talk to and vent to, but for this particular subject, Naisha has been that one that I can bounce this idea off and I can speak freely. She's not a Black man, but she is a Black woman. And she has helped me kind of process why people don't show up for these type of events, why people don't, why men think crying is weak, talking about their emotions or talking about their depression. So let's bring it home with you, and then I'm going to go to Celeste to wrap this question up. What are some things that not only Black men, but women can do to support Black men, and Black men can support women? Because I see you doing it in real time every day, all day, and I love it. So please chime in on what you suggest to our audience, how they could just better help each other and themselves in the process.
Yes. Do you mind if I respond to the earlier question?
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
I feel so compelled to share this thought because I think the way we grow up matters, right? It sets a program on our brain, and this program, if you're lucky enough and you realize the program isn't running well, you can go to therapy, you can do the healing work in order to reset that program, right? So that you go from surviving to thriving. But not everybody gets a chance to reset that program. Who sets up the program? Well, society, our parents, right? What we watch on TV, what we learn from the people that are around us. And, you know, one of the things, I'm obviously not a Black man, but one of the things that I see happening, especially when, you know, they're younger, and this has come up before in some sessions that I've been in, where, you know, Black moms or relatives will say to a young girl who falls down, "Oh, honey, get up. Let me kiss it. Oh, you okay?" But if a young Black boy falls down, "Get up, man up, right?" So what is that telling you as a young child? What program is that putting into your head as a young man, right? Don't feel your feelings, push your feelings away, you know, like it's not manly or masculine to feel your feelings. And unfortunately, this is something that gets hammered in over and over and reinforced over and over and over again, to the point that you don't feel like it's manly to express yourself or to feel. But it's like, but we're human, we're not machines. So that was something I wanted to share, because I think as Black women and as people, you can help to change that program, right? If you're a mom to a son, you know, you can help to reaffirm them and reaffirm their feelings and say that it's okay to cry. You know what I mean? This stuff takes place at home first. So I think that that's the part that we can take. And if you do have Black male friends, be there for them. Thankfully, you know, I think it's the highest honor when my Black male friends can come to me and vent. I'm like, whoa, you feel safe with me. And that's a huge, huge honor because, you know, there's not a lot of places and spaces where Black men feel safe, unfortunately.
Thank you. So let's come on up in here. We want to know because OJ, Yoga Mike, and Aisha and Jody Ann have all talked about the importance of having a Black therapist. Chime in on that. Like, what does that mean to you?
So I think when people are able to identify somebody that looks like them, maybe have shared experiences, it helps them, you know, feel safe. But it's also to say that not every Black therapist may have shared experiences. But I think that it's a huge start for some people. I think if people are searching for therapists, understanding it's not a one size fits all. Everybody's kind of practice looks differently. One of the things around like the stigma around mental health, you know, it's very huge. I always tell the story of being 19, overwhelmed, and my oxygen level dropped to 90, and I was in the hospital overnight. And they did all these tests, and they said, you know, maybe you should see a social worker because everything's coming back good. And I ripped the IV out. I was like, these people think I'm crazy. And I always share that story because I think people assume that I've always like been this mindful and about mental health, but I definitely was not. And so for people that may be struggling with stigma, it's important to at least be honest with yourself. It's not about like, you don't have to share it with the world. You know, I think it's about being honest with yourself and starting with your why. If part of what you want is peace, if part of what you want is not to feel like you're controlled by your emotions, then you really have to really work on unraveling some of that programming that has taken place over the years. Even not just over the years, just in real time right now, we're always being programmed and we don't understand it. We don't understand how media, not just social media, but TV, who we're talking to, like how much that plays a role in the way that we're thinking about ourselves, the way that we're feeling about ourselves. So I'm really like intentional about the way I start my day because I think the way we start our day sets the tone for the rest of the day. So if I start my day on my phone, on social media, I'm setting the tone and I'm choosing for social media to be the outlook of the way I look at my life. And so I just think that's an important like caveat to really think about is like just starting with your why, really what is it that you want to achieve? And unfortunately, a lot of people aren't willing to do the work to get the peace that they desperately seek. It's not something that's easy, but it's definitely attainable for everyone.
Love it. Thank you so much. Carrie?
Yeah, so that leads me to the next question. And specifically answering this one, Jody Ann, you will be answering this one. Did you see any new creative ways or interesting ways that people sought help during this time?
I think that people were willing to basically try everything is what I noticed around me, is that people were willing to reach within themselves, which I think is new for a lot of people. I think that people are a lot more interested and comfortable with reaching out to therapists, although there is a stigma that I think really resides within a lack of genuine education. But I think that people, like I said, are looking within themselves, which is new. I think that they're looking into therapy, which has become more of, I think, a common space. I think that people are, you know, finding that true friendships are important because a support system is important. I think that people are building support systems. So I think that there's this education around how to, okay, I thought I went on for a second. I think that there's a lot of education going on around how to, you know, properly take care of yourself. So I think people are trying everything is what I see. I see a lot of self-care hunger, and it's just, it's being sought out in a lot of different places. But that's where I've noticed it within self therapy, building friendships, true relationships, and kind of re-educating ourselves on why it's important to be mentally healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Heavy on self-care hungry. And so that leads me to one of our last questions for the panel tonight. And everyone will get a chance to answer this. Also, just a reminder that we have 10 minutes left, or we have 10 more minutes to answer questions. So let's try to be mindful that people have jobs, that people are getting off from work, that, you know, people are tired while we're talking about self-care. So my question is, and I'll say, Yoga Mike, you can answer this one right after I ask it. What common practices would you recommend for daily self-care outside of therapy?
OJ already answered it. He's doing it. He's like literally when you get up in the morning, like these are the most basic meditations a yogi will tell you to do. You climb a mountain and find a yoga master that's sitting in the cave and say, "What do I do, master?" He'll be like, "Yo, when you get up in the morning, just sit still for a little while. Look at the top 3 things that you have to do that day and make a deal with yourself that I'm gonna get these things done. And if I don't, I'm not gonna break myself in half." And at the end of the day, you go over those things. And if you got them done, you celebrate. And if there was something you could have fixed or could have done better, you give yourself a moment to deal with it and say, "I'll take care of it when I can." You don't beat yourself up. But if you don't take time to do this, you're going to continuously beat yourself up because you're not going to have places and spaces to help to put them in a healthy way. So yeah, that's simple. Day and night, just take care of yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. My next, I will be passing it on to Naisha.
Do you mind repeating the question one more time?
I got you. So what are some common practices that you would recommend for daily self-care outside of therapy?
Oh man, there's so many options, and really that is the whole premise behind Pure Spark, is that there's so many different ways to find your light. Therapy is one. I was in therapy a couple of times during my whole wellness journey, but I found that when I added certain things to therapy, it helps to complement it. So when I added yoga to, I was doing yoga and therapy at the same time, I felt like I was able to open up more. It was like, and I was like, wow, this is kind of weird. Who knew that moving my body could also do something to my mind? I had never thought about, obviously it's all connected, but I never thought that one would have an effect on another, because that's the way we were conditioned, right? When we go to see a physician, they're not looking at our mental state. They're literally just looking at, okay, is she coughing? Oh, something's wrong with her chest, or let's weigh you. They're not thinking about how depression can affect that weight on the scale because you're eating and da-da-da. So of course, I never correlated the two until I started doing the work myself. And, because of that, then I was like, I got to share this with people. But yoga's really big for me. Meditation, although I don't do it as much as I wish I could. I do it when I'm super stressed out, which means I probably waited too long to do it. But that really helps me. Being out in nature, even though it's cold, I will go for that walk. I live not too far from Franklin Park. So I'll walk around Franklin Park a couple of times. That helps me. Just really being in the sun. Like, I have a window in my bedroom. I'll just sit in front of my window and I'll let the sun just hit me. And I'm just like, oh, this is so relaxing, But if you come to where I live, I literally have a whole bunch of different things. I have a, what do you call it? Like a sauna bed that I got off of Amazon, and you just lay in, and it's like a hot pocket. You just get in there and the thing heats up to over 100 degrees, and I just sit in there and I start sweating, and I'm releasing. I just feel like all these toxins are I'm like, yes. Eating health, I could go on and on, but that's because I've been in a situation where I almost lost my life. So I'm probably a person that probably is super extra when it comes to self-care because I know what will happen if I don't do it. So I try to have as many tools in my toolbox as possible, so that I don't end up in the same situation that I was in. There's also things like setting boundaries. I'm really, a big person about setting boundaries and saying no when I can't. I'm also really big on venting, and I'll stop there.
Thank you. I'm over here jotting down notes in my head like, yep, another self-care I can add to my list. And heavy on the sun gazing. I love to sun gaze, okay? So next person that I will pass it off to is OJ. Take it away.
Yeah, I love the sun. Before this whole shutdown, my last trip was to Trinidad and Tobago for Carnival with Nisha. Shout out to you. So I love the sun. So I would definitely recommend that if that's something that you like to feel. But I'll make it quick. Besides meditating, and just like, venting and setting boundaries. If that's not your thing, like meditation and whatnot, I definitely would recommend just doing something that makes you happy, something that just, gets your endorphins going, just relaxes you or just makes you forget about whatever's stressing you out, whether if it's reading a book, watching your favorite movie, your favorite album, a song, or just vibing with, your friends and family. If that's something that you would more relate, that you can relate to and that will make you happy and, kind of, again, just keep your well-being going and at a optimal level, then choose that. You don't have to meditate, you don't have to pray if that's not your thing, but do something that, that's a healthy habit and that's going to keep you going.
Thank you. Now we're going to pass it off to Jody Ann.
I would suggest gratitude lists. So I would suggest that at least a few times a week. It's something that I do and that helps a lot. So in addition to the gratitude list, I'm going to echo the yoga, of course. I'm going to echo the meditation. Sitting with yourself is really important. It's one of my favorite mentors that I had for at least 9 years taught me that if you sit with yourself for long enough, answers will come. So honestly, whatever it is that you're looking for, if you have the ability to sit with yourself, it's the flow of life and it's the balance of life. It will come to you if you open yourself. So meditation, yoga, gratitude lists. I believe in water therapy. So I do believe in, bringing yourself to a body of water, allowing that to wash over you, being honest with yourself. It's one of the biggest points that I've used within the business and before the business, just training with people. But honesty is going to be the only portion or the only part of which you can grow. So, you can lie to yourself or you can have this kind of, this dishonest idea of where you are or where it is that you want to be. And essentially you're going to be living from that dishonest point, right? So that honest position and having the ability to be honest with yourself is a big part of self-care, I believe. So those are the things that I would suggest, and big on the water therapy. I think that will help a lot of people if you want to try it.
I'm definitely going to take that into consideration. Thank you. Now we are going to pass it off to Celeste, the therapist, this is going to be a pretty interesting perspective that I would love to hear, because I want to know, what do you think that people can practice ways of self-care outside of therapy as a therapist?
Yeah, I love everything that everybody said. I'll just give people just 4 things to think about, because I'm really big on what's within my control. There's no monetary thing about it. And this is something I had to have people be mindful of during the pandemic. And that's your sleep is important. You're moving your body. I don't say exercise. I think sometimes people have a hard time with they think gym or weights. And I just say moving your body, and then the foods that you put into your body is important. And if it's, something where you have always not really ate healthy, it's not about getting rid of everything, but thinking more so what can I add to help replace it. The same way with negative thoughts, it's like you can't just get rid of negative thoughts. You need to add some like positivity to replace those negative thoughts. So those three things are really big on our mental status: is our sleep, our foods, and are we moving our bodies. And then the last thing I would just add is just every day, like asking yourself, how are you feeling? I'm really big on emotions. I think that if we understood, I think like, I've seen a tweet like algebra is cool, but like, what if we really understood emotions before we left school? And I think that if we understood for ourselves, like, how am I feeling and why am I feeling it? I'm not going to be led by my emotion. I'm going to be able to acknowledge I'm angry. I'm going to acknowledge I'm insecure or I'm anxious, but I'm not going to make my decisions based off of my anxiety. I'm not going to make my decisions based off of my insecurity, but I'm going to like check it. So really thinking about those 4 things as something that you can do within your control to help you with your mental status.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate the fact how you said whatever is within your control. I was working with a group of mothers who lost their sons to homicide in Boston police in Boston. And they told me, I asked them, I was like, how are you able to get through this pain or grieve through this? And they said, true power is letting go of what you can't control. So I think that was very powerful that you said that, and it brought me back. Now I will be passing it back to, I would say my right hand man, but the Zoom did something, so now he's on my left. So my left hand man, Quincy.
Hey, I got your back. I got your right and your left. Thank you so much, Carrie, and thank you to the panelists. This has been a really dope conversation. We are winding down the time, but I am a man of my word, so I do want to open it up briefly before I close this to any burning questions from the audience. If you have a question, you can take yourself off mute and ask one of our panelists. Just please be respectful of people's time, because as Carrie said, making sure that you're not on Zoom all fucking day is a form of health, self-care. So I want to make sure that I'm not perpetuating that. All right. So if you have a burning question, please go ahead and take yourself off mute and ask our panelists. If not, we're going to wrap it up.
I just wanted to know how to get in touch with folks.
Got it. That's a great question. So panelists, if you could go ahead and put your information in the chat, I will make sure that everyone gets that. I have everybody that registered's email address, so I'll make sure that I follow up with the email, a thank you email, as well as the information to get in contact with each and every one of our panelists. As I said in the beginning, for some of you guys who didn't hear, we will be doing this again because we don't want this to be a one-stop shop. We don't want this to be just for Black History Month. We don't want to be tokenized, none of that bull. So what we will be doing is trying to get our panelists back and just try to do different resources. I have to put this out there because I wouldn't be Quincy. Y'all know me, I'm the finance guy. Pay these people. So if you got a little change, pay these people. Like, they got cash apps, throw them some money. They don't even have to be giving you services. Throw them money so they can continue to thrive. All right. It doesn't have to be $300 or anything like that, but like, please pay them because they're doing services, and all this week they've given us resources that people will pay thousands and thousands of dollars for. So I can't stress that enough. Please, please pay people, especially Black folks, for their services. All right. So again, I thank you all for coming. If we have any more therapists or clinicians in the audience, thank you for being here. I hope everyone gained something throughout this week. Please give me feedback because I'm always trying to do better, bigger and better. And I want people to really heal. I mean what I say. So that's all I have. Denise, Nyla, Dominique, do you guys have any? Charlene, do you have anything? I know Charlene's working on a dope event with Denise. Please share that because I want people to be in the know and attend some of these events because they've been self-care for me. So Charlene, Denise, do you got anything? We got 1 more minute.
Yeah, I'll talk real quick. So first of all, thank you guys so much, or thank you all so much I missed yoga and I missed the workout. OJ, I was a little scared. not gonna lie. But we cooked last night and that was so fun. I was telling all my friends about it. So thank you, Jody Ann, for that experience, and thank you all to the panelists today. It was amazing conversation. Quincy and Nyla, you guys should be super proud. Yeah, next time, OJ, word. But so on the Friday the 26th, myself and Shar, along with another member of Ben Millennials, are working to host something called the Black Experience Boston. And so it's really an art showcase for different Black artists in Boston. And I will make sure that Q gets this information to the panelists and everybody here with our flyer. But we're gonna have local hip hop artists, we're gonna have local poets, local fashion designers, and some motivational speakers to, you know, kind of guide us through an experience and through an event. So it's going to be lit and exciting and fun, and a great way to close out our Black History Month celebration. So we would love to have all of this amazing energy on that Zoom with us. So I will make sure that Q gets all of this information. And thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Denise, and thank everybody. So this has been brought to you by Ben Millennials. So if anybody says young folks ain't out here doing something, they're lying to you. We out here in these streets. All right. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night. Y'all be blessed. Peace.